Okay. That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, so we started talking about Rasan, some very bad disease. It's okay, I'm gonna turn off the fan because the baby. Is it cool enough in here?
I mean, I was preparing because of this morning. You had gone full blast there and you froze Jeff out.
I think it's the noise, it's not the cold.
No, it was pretty chill.
So this was on 77B2. So this Rasan, it's watery eyes and runny nose and spit from the mouth, a lot of extra saliva, and there's flies around him. So I don't know exactly what it is. So, and then there was a potion to so basically we said it's because of some bug that's like a parasite in your head, and so you make a potion and you put 300 cups of it or something, pour it on his head till it softens his skull, and then you cut open the skull and you take out this bug by putting hadassim leaves under its legs, and then you pull it out and then you have to burn it. So I don't know if the whole potion stuff is that necessarily because of Rasan, or that's the way they did brain surgery in those days to soften the skull. But this is basically if we want to talk about the sugya, which we mentioned once or twice about doctors, and according to Ibn Ezra, I think in Parshas Mishpatim, about they can only do stuff on the outside and not stuff on the inside. This Gemara is talking certainly about internal medicine, that you're able to do a surgery. I guess because of the symptoms, they knew what it is. So, but from this Gemara, you could do brain surgery for this Rasan. Yeah, Rasan. So 77B2 in the second paragraph. And if you're in Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, it's in the second very wide line. Machriz Rabbi Yochanan, Hizar Mizvu V'Shel Bali Rasan. Rabbi Yochanan said, be careful from the flies that are from the people with Rasan. Rabbi Zera Lahaviyasa Bezike. Rabbi Zera wouldn't sit downwind of someone with Rasan in case the wind would blow stuff towards you. It might be Aramaic, I don't know. I didn't look in the dictionary, but it might be Aramaic. Rabbi Lazar below Ayal Ba'ale. Rabbi Lazar wouldn't go in the tent of someone who had Rasan. So from these things, it seems that they had some type of idea of germs, and perhaps the first one is that some illnesses get spread by flies. We know malaria gets spread by mosquitoes. There was something they ended up, I think it's called, when you don't have enough niacin in your diet, I think it's called rickets. So there was a study, I mean, a long time ago, they realized they saw that there was a certain illness, disease that people were getting, and the early epidemiologists, we're talking probably more than 100 years ago. I'd have to look it up, see exactly what, and they found that wherever there was a certain type of fly, these people had these illnesses. So they thought that there was some illness that the flies were spreading. It ended up that it was rickets, that these people primarily had, like, were eating corn was their main diet, and they didn't have enough niacin. And it wasn't a disease, but it was a vitamin deficiency. So the lesson from that was correlation does not imply causation. But
They had a long time ago with scurvy, I think it was, with
right,
chips.
right,
They
exactly.
started to bring fresh fruits.
Or what's it? Well, fresh fruits only last for a week or so, or two. So it was what I read, that it was what's it called? Sauerkraut.
Right.
Because it's pickled, it could last for a while.
Yeah.
Right, but the point is that in the Gemara, they it seems at least Rabbi Yochanan seemed to think that there were some illnesses that were spread by flies, and Rabbi Lazar wouldn't be in the tent, so that we saw by COVID with if you're in an enclosed area, so some things get spread, within the enclosed area. Rabbi Ami and Rabasi didn't eat from eggs from neighborhood where people had rasan, because in that saying, even though eggs had shells on it and you wouldn't eat the shells of the egg, they were still worried that it would get through. Now the Gemara was aware that eggs are porous, there's a simple experiment. If you soak, if you make red dye or whatever color dye and you soak eggs in it, the color goes through the egg. Then halacha knew this also. So eggs aren't perfectly sealed, but Rabbi and Ravasi were worried also about the germs. But then again, if it's a parasite, how spreadable is it? But they think that something spread. If you had the parasite, it got spread. That's what they thought. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi michrach bahu, but Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi would meet, like, so mikrach is like the word korech, a sandwich, meaning he would be very close physically with them, v'asik Torah, and teach Torah with them. Amar ayelas ahuvim v'yalas chen, because the Torah is called a beloved ram. Sometimes, well, this ayelet is the female animal, and gives up a lot and gives forth a lot of grace or a lot of favor. Chen. Im chen mala alomdeha, if it gives chen to those who learn it, agune lo magne, doesn't it protect? So there's a general rule, there's in Psachim and other places, that if you're shluchei mitzvah, ein nizaken. If you're doing a mitzvah, you're not going to get harmed. So some people say that, let's say Rebbe Lazar, it seemed Rebbe Lazar wouldn't do Bikur Cholim because he wouldn't enter their tent. So if you're doing a mitzvah, you have special protection. So so obviously Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi held that he was learning Torah. It's a higher. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was learning Torah. The Torah study itself, an act of Torah study, would protect. There's a Gemara that a few Amoraim, one of them was, David HaMelech, and then also a few Amoraim, they were learning Torah, and the Malcham Avos couldn't kill them while they were actively studying Torah. So we know that the Malcham Avos can't get you when you're learning Torah. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, I'm not going to get sick if I'm with them to teach them Torah or to learn with them Torah anyway. And it seems that so the question is, why didn't Rabbi Lazar didn't go into the tent? If he's being Bikur Cholim, then he should have protection from a regular shluchei mitzvah, someone who's doing a mitzvah. So I mean, you could fetch and say, so when he's coming, so he's doing a mitzvah, so he might have the protection, but when he's leaving the tent, he may not have protection. So obviously, so that's one answer you could say. A different answer that you could say that I gave to explain this Gemara, I think on Daf Zayin and Psachim, is that when we say because shluchei mitzvah einu nizaken, there's cases about people, you're going to get harmed by, let's say, highway armed robbers, or, and I don't mean the gas prices on the side of the road, or does it mean there were cases in the Gemara talking about being stung, let's say, by a scorpion? So at least according to some Amoraim, when we say shluchei mitzvah einu nizaken, you might have special protection from inanimate objects. Well, this actually is going to be the flip of what I was saying. It was that inanimate objects, because I've spoken many times that there's a tension between free will and hashgacha and Hashem supervision. Because if Hashem supervises and protects people, how can, let's say, harm befall you? How can an innocent person get shot to death in a random act of violence? So some limit hashgacha, that you have to be on a high level to have supervision, and some say that no, even though you do have supervision, so some are in the middle. The Meforshim say you have hashgacha, but there also is free will. So a person has free will to shoot people up, but Hashem will make sure that the people he shoots up are guilty, have committed certain very bad averos, and they deserve the death penalty, but there's no there were no witnesses, or there's no beis din to get it. So the people who get killed are not innocent people. That's a middle ground to try to say there is free will, but there is hashgacha. But then others say no, free will has to be stronger than hashgacha, than supervision, because if you're going to get rewarded and punished, you have to have total free will in order to do something wrong to get punished for your free will. So at the opposite extreme, so there are opinions that say someone's free will to shoot up innocent people is stronger than the supervision that Hashem has for those people. So he's spoken about that. So it could be, and this actually doesn't fit with what I was going to say from the Gemara in Psachim over there. It seems that you'll have someone who's on the way to do a mitzvah might be protected from, let's say, being bitten by a scorpion. Scorpions don't have free will. People have free wills. Animals don't have free will. But because according to opinions that free will is extremely important, it is super important. So if you're going to do a mitzvah, it's possible, even if you're going to do a mitzvah, it's possible that someone else with their free will can harm you. But in this case, this Rasan is for the most part the inanimate. I mean, it's not a human. I mean, there's a human who's sick with it, but so a different thing you could say is that shluchei mitzvah eino nizakin, but when there's a very specific higher level of sakana, of danger, the fact that you're doing a mitzvah isn't enough to protect that danger. For example, a war zone is an extremely dangerous place. The soldiers who are fighting in the war are definitely doing a mitzvah. Even the logistics, the people who are only bringing them supplies, not actively fighting on the front lines by supplying them, they're also doing a mitzvah being soldiers. But that doesn't mean because you're a soldier that you're not going to get harmed. It's unfortunate. We know how many, almost 500 soldiers, I think, have been killed. Israeli soldiers have been killed since October 7th, or including October 7th. Oh, it's over 600. But the Sefer Chinuch, or the Minchas Chinuch, talks about the high threshold of danger in a battlefield. So there's certain things that even though you're doing a mitzvah, if there's a certain threshold of danger, you're not going to be protected from by the fact that you're doing a mitzvah. So for whatever reason, Rabbi Yochanan, it doesn't say that they were, but Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was not afraid of catching Rasan when he was learning Torah with them, because Torah will protect. That's what he said. And when I looked at this Gemara, what I think of my grandfather, my mother's father, he didn't learn in yeshiva that long. I mean, he did. I don't know if he ever was but he did have a Rabbi Winchester. Rabbi Winchester was born in Chicago. Then he went to Eretz Yisrael to learn in Hebron Yeshiva, and he was almost a victim of the pogrom in 1929. But he was such a tzaddik that when the boys, I don't know if it was typhus, but whatever, something, a very infectious disease that people had over there, when the boys were sick, people were so afraid of catching it, they wouldn't even bring the food for the sick boys from the yeshiva into the room. But then they saw that the food wasn't there, but they knew the boys were too weak to go get the food. So what happened? Rabbi Winchester would go in and feed them. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, obviously Rabbi Winchester was not a morer like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, but he had true avas habrios, and he did this and didn't get sick. And it was Arabs who nursed him back to health after he was stabbed and slashed and thrown off a building in Hebron in 1929, and he survived. He came back to Chicago and taught in the HTC and in Albany Park. I mean, their Albany Park branch. Or for a while, actually, Zelmar was complaining this. So I guess at a certain time, Rabbi Winchester taught. Actually, maybe that was also in Albany Park. But Zelmar also had, and he spoke about a certain year on Columbus Day when there was no school. So Rabbi Winchester wanted to give an extra long share, but there was a big a big rivalry football game from the high schools, and they didn't want to go to share, and Rabbi Winchester didn't understand why they weren't happy to have an extra long share that day. So Rabbi Winchester was a big tzaddik, and he would go and feed these sick boys, and he wasn't afraid that he was going to get sick from them, and he didn't get sick from them. He have a shachev. When it was time for Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to die, Amrlo l'malchamaves zil aved le'ruse. So Hashem or whoever told the Malchamaves, become his friend, meaning you have to make the acquaintance of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Yes, it's a sad story about Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Azalis Chazele, the Malcham Avos found him. Amar le achvi le duchtais. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, "Show me my place in Gan Eden." Amar le l'chaye. So the Malcham Avos said, "Okay." Amar le Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, "Havli sakinach, give me your knife." He was smart. He knew that if the Malcham Avos had his knife, he could kill him on the way. But if he had the Malcham Avos knife, the Malcham Avos couldn't kill him. Dilma mefas le'borcha, because he was worried maybe the Malcham Avos was going to kill him on the journey to show him his place in Olam Haba. Yavani Hale. So the Malcham Avos gave him the knife. Kimat lahasam when they got to Gan Eden. Dalia kamachvile. So he lifted up Rabbi Shua ben Levi to show him the place. Shver nafalahu gisa, but Rabbi Shua ben Levi jumped and was able to go to the other side. Nakte bekarna de glime, but the Malcham Avos grabbed the corner of his coat or of his shirt. Amar Levi shvasa dolasina. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, "I'm giving you I'm swearing to you that I'm not going to come back." So meaning you don't have to kill me. I'm in Gan Eden. I'm never going to leave. So if my point is I'm not going to be in the world anymore, I give you my word, I'm never going to come back to the world. Amar Kuchabrichu, so the Holy One, blessed be He, said, He is Shol Shvua Nehadar. If he ever took a Shvua that was revoked, and it was that he had a matter, Ishshel is like it was a heter. So if he had to do a Tarsan Adarim, Nihadar, then he has to go back to the other side, and the Malcham Avos will actually kill him. Lo neheder. But if he never took a shvua that had to be hutar, he doesn't have to go back. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi never took a vow that needed a Tarz Nadarim, so he was able to stay. Amar lehavli sakinai. The Malcham Avos said, "Give me my knife back." Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he loved people. He didn't want the Malcham Avos to be able to meet more people with his knife. So Nafla Baskal of Amrle, a Baskal came and said, Havni Hali, give him back. Then give it back to him. So it's interesting. I have no idea what the answer is, but there are Gemaras and stuff about a Baskal coming for people in this world. Reb Shimon Levi was ready on the other side, whatever the other side is, and the Baskal told him to give it back. It was still a Baskal. Because he needs it for other creatures. He needs the knife, so Rabbi Shimon Levi gave it back. Machriz Eliyahu Kamei, Eliyahu Hanavi announced when Rabbi Shimon Levi was there. Hanumakam Lebar Levi, make space for the son of Levi. Levi is, I guess, an Aramaic version of Levi. Panu Malcolm Levar, he said it twice. Make place for Bar Levi, make place for Bar Levi. Also Ashkel Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So he found Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Havi Yosef at Tlasasar Haftike Pisa, who was sitting on 13 chairs of fine gold. So some say that I guess they were stacking chairs. Like our chairs, Lahavdil, our stacking chairs, there were 13 gold chairs. ArtScroll has another explanation in the footnote about 13 chairs, but somehow there were 13 chairs stacked on top of each other, or a pyramid maybe. So Amrle Adhu Bar Levi. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "You're the son of Levi." Amrle Hain. He said, "Yes." Nira Sakesh just be a mecha. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "Was there ever a rainbow in your days?" Amrle Hain. He said, "Yes." Im Kain Iata Bar Levi. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "If so, you're not the son of Levi." So the Meforshim will say, so that we know, well, Hashem gave the rainbow as a covenant that he wasn't going to destroy the world with a flood. So when there's a rainbow, it's a bad thing, because it means Hashem is angry. And if not for the fact that he made this bris, this covenant with Noach, he would be destroying the world. Chas v'shalom. So if there was a rainbow in your days, that means that there was a certain you didn't protect the generation enough. But really, there wasn't a rainbow. But Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi didn't want to brag, and even though you're not allowed to tell a lie, you're allowed to not give yourself all the credit you're due in certain situations. That's not it's not a prohibited form of lying. Velohi, the lohavi midi, but that wasn't true. There wasn't any rainbow in Reb Shua ben Levi's days. He said, I don't want to make myself look too good. He was an anav. So it ends up that Rabbi Shimon Levi was never, the Malcham Avos never killed him. He got to Gan Eden alive. Rav Chanina bar Papa Shushvine Hava. Rav Chanina bar Papa was a very good friend of the Malcham Avos. Whatever that means, I don't know. But he was a Shoshvinen is a very good, a good friend. So we saw way back in the first perek of Shoshvinen are the very, very close friends of the Chassan and the Kala who get them ready and tell them the stuff they need to know for their wedding and for right after their wedding. So it's a very close friend. Kihavaka naicha nafshe. So when it was time for Chanina ben Papa to die, they told the royal told the Malcham Avos, make your acquaintance with him. Meaning, or excuse, actually the article translates it, do what he wants. Meaning you have to kill him, but you could, he has some choice in the matter. So the Malcham Avos went to him and appeared to him. Amr le Shifki tlasin yom ad another Talmudai. So Reb Chanina bar Papa said, so Chanina bar Papa is actually, when we make a siyum, which Emir Tashem will finish the perek tonight, it's not siyum on the Hamasachta, we have all these sons of Papa. So Chanina bar Papa is one of the people we say in the siyum. So what's so significant? I didn't see it inside, but Reb Chaim Kanievsky collected all the bar Papas where they are in Shas at one time. So what's so important with this Gemara? We're going to understand why we mentioned Chanina bar Papa to siyum, I think. Amrle Shivkin Tlasa Yom Adon Hadar Talmud. Give me 30 days to review all my Torah that I've learned. The Amri Ashri Mishabala Kanvas Amud Biyado, because they say praiseworthy is who comes here to Shemayim, who has his Talmud, all his Torah that he learned in his hands. So in those days, that meant you knew all your Torah. More recently, in the last, pocket-sized Sfarim or Sfarim that were small enough to bring, because most the Gemara, the Sfarim used to be the size of this maroon Gemara that Jeff's like to use because it was big enough for him to see. So in the very first Torah Umada journal, I don't know, about 30 years ago, so they were talking about a certain small Gemara that they had, and it didn't have, it doesn't look like our with Gemara with Rashi on the inside and Tosfos on the outside. It actually didn't have Tosfos on the page at all. It had the rush. So someone was trying to analyze the significance of this, who printed it, why did they print it? And then in the next volume, they had a letter from Lawrence Kaplan, well known for translating Halachic Man from Rabbi Yasha Ber. And he said, no, you're missing the point. It was written in the page, because you gave us how many centimeters this book is. The book was very small. People were able to bring it with them and learn on the way. So and that was right after the time of the Maral. So for a few hundred years already, travel size Svarim, the publishers and other people use this phrase to say you can learn as you're traveling because it's a small enough sefer that you could bring it with when you're commuting. And even on a tape that I heard from Irvine from probably 1982 around. So someone had a small sefer and he said, "Oh, this is very good. It's you not using it the phrase of this Gemara, but in the phrase that you're able to bring your Torah with you and learn when you're going somewhere else."
Yeah, they didn't get smartphones here.
Right, nowadays it's very right, and so there's tremendous access to everything on your phone. I was at a wedding a couple months ago, and someone asked me a certain medrash. He showed me something that someone quoted a certain Yalkut Shimoni about if Iran gets it doesn't succeed, the Mashiach is going to come within a year. So this guy was very interested. He said, "Do you know where it is?" He didn't ask his rabbi or his rabbis. He asked me, and I was at the wedding, and I was on my phone. I was able to find the text of the medrash. I didn't think I was going to be able to find it, but I mean, because he didn't. But I was able to find the Yalkut Shimoni for him, and on my phone, and showed it to him right there, and he was very happy. So yeah, so the phone, yeah. So from the fact that Rav Chanina bar Papa wanted to make sure that when he was going to go to Shemayim, he was going to have all his Torah. So that's maybe one of the reasons we mentioned Chanina bar Papa in our siyums, because we learned it and we want to master it and have it with us, that it's always going to be with us. And I think we mentioned about 3 weeks ago, one of the questions you were asked, what's the first question at the judgment, and did you learn Torah or nusatem b'amuna? Did you do your business dealings with faith, with honest, and whatever? There's questions. Tosos asked him, I think it's Daf Lamed or Lamed Aleph and Shabbos, that this Gemara made say Maso Matan. Did you deal? Were your business dealings honest? But the different Gemara says your main the tchilas dino shel adam, the beginning of the din of a person, is about did you learn with Torah? So I think they mentioned that there's, I think Tosfos's answer is that there's one judgment when you die, but then at the time of Tchias HaMesim, there's another one. So one of the Gemaras was talking about when you die, the other one was talking about Tchias HaMesim. Obviously, we don't know if Tosfos is right. And hopefully the only judgment we'll see is at the time of Tchias HaMesim and not for us, but hopefully it will happen tomorrow. Or tonight, and in Israel, it'll be tomorrow in Israel, but it'll be tonight for us. So the Malchamavas gave him the 30 days. Shafke, he left him. Lavasar Tlasan Yomin Izal is Chazile. After 30 days, he went and appeared himself. He showed himself again to Reb Chanina bar Papa. Amarle Achile Duchtai. He said, "Show me my place in Gan Eden." Amarle Lachayit. The Malchamavas said, "Fine." Amarle Havli Sakina. Reb Chanina bar Papa says, "Give me your knife." Dilma Mevasas Lebeorcha, because you might use it for me on the way. Amarle Kecharach Ba'islam Everly. You want to do like your colleague Rabbi Shub Levi? No. I'm not going to give you my knife. I learned my lesson already. But that's not what the Gemara is going to say, interestingly enough. Amar Le, Rav Chanina bar Papa said, Iti Sefer Torah b'chazi. Go bring a Sefer Torah and look at it. Mi'ika midi diksibe de lo kiante. Is there anything written in it that I didn't fulfill? So if I tell you I'm going to give it back, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to give it back to you. Amar Le, he said, Mi karta bevali rasan visakta b'Torah. Did you get very close? Because I don't know if I finished this thought, but the word ikrachtach is like the word korech. A sandwich. He would go very close to the people with Rasan and study with Torah and Levi. So he said, did you go very close, physically close to people sick with Rasan and learn Torah with them like Rabbi Shub Levi? He was most nefesh like that in a good way. Obviously, there was no sakana involved for him. We discussed already why. So for him, I'm willing to give my knife. But you, I'm not willing to give my knife. Afilu hachi. So even though the Malchamavas did kill him. There was a pillar of fire that stood between him and everyone else. And there's a tradition that this column of fire doesn't come and block between the mace and the other people, except to one person in a generation or two people in a generation. Not more than that. So there is back in a Gemara Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. I think the Masar Shashas says a mistake. The Masar Shashas says it's on Yud Zayin Amud Beis, but it's not there on Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. That was talking about being Mesameach Chas and Bekala, dancing with the Chas and the Kala, or in front of the Kala, and they were juggling and this and that. That he had great zchus for juggling the fires or juggling the hadatzin branches in front of the kala. Something happened. So, and then there's a Gemara in Daf Yud Aleph in Sanhedrin about Shmuel HaKatan, that when he died, there was a certain baskol or something that said that he was great enough that he should have had nevuah, if not for the fact that there is no nevuah in that time anymore. So how great he was. So Rav Chanina bar Papa was exceptional in his generation, even though he wasn't able to outsmart the Malchamavas like Rabbi Shub Levi. Krab Lagabe Rabbi Alexandri. So then Rabbi Alexandri went to this column of fire. They happened to be just a shy Rav Rifkin. Zichrono Levrach, was the last chief rabbi of St. Louis, and after he was sick and had to retire, they never appointed another chief rabbi, and they probably never will. So he's like the last chief rabbi of a city in the United States. He died about 6 years ago, I think. For Moshe to give the hesped, Moshe was close to him. So he went to the Soviet Union to help train them to write Gittin. Now, I think I asked Eliezer Bakalenik, so he was trained to write Gittin in Moscow, and I don't think he met, or he didn't. If he met him, he doesn't remember meeting him, or maybe not by name, Rabbi Rifkin. But a common child was, how do you write names in a get? So Alexander is not a Hebrew name, and there's many Alexanders named after the Tsar. How do you write it? So because there's a Rabbi Alexandri in the Gemara here, and I think there was one of the Baliatos was Rabbi Alexander. He said to spell it the way. So if it's a Shem Kodesh, a name from Tanakh or from the Gemara, we spell it that way. If it's not a native Hebrew name, there's rules. Ashkenazim have different rules of writing it than Sephardim. So it's similar. It's not exactly, but it's similar to some of the Yiddish. You add aleph and ayins and yuds depending on vowels. So if we'd have to write Alexandri, there would probably be an aleph between the samach and the nun for Alexander. Eli had a discussion with a Dayan in Israel. His name was Dayan Solomon. He's not related to Chana, but my uncle used to give him rides when he was with the Basin in Tel Aviv for the name Max, because his Max spelled Mem Ayin Kuf Samach Max, like that's more like a Max, or is it Mem Aleph Kuf Samach Max? And I think it happened to be that the person that Eli said that the person there was English. So it depends. If you have an American accent, we would want to write it with an ayin. But with the British accent, they say Max. They don't say Max in with an English accent. So it could depend on the place, depending on how you pronounce the name in your place. You could have the same name, but it sounds different in different places. But so Alexander, for the way Ashkenazim write it, there probably have to be an aleph after the samach or the nun. And I think Ramosha said that one of the common shilas that came up, Rabbi Rifkin, I think Paskin, that even though they weren't named after this Amor, Rabbi Alexander will spell it the get this way. So, so I guess it seems that they weren't able to bury Reb Chanina Bar Papa because this column of fire was blocking anyone from going past it. So Rabbi Alexander said, please do for Kvod Chachamim, and the fire should go away. I guess he's asking Hashem that the fire should go away so we can bury him. But ArtScroll doesn't explain it this way. ArtScroll seems to say that it's that by showing the fire for him, it's showing that no one else is on his level. So it's a lack of kavod for the other people. But it seems that they weren't able to bury him because this fire was blocking the remains. So lo ashkach, but the fire, it didn't affect the fire. The fire stayed. So Alexander said, do for your father's honor. So I don't know if that means your papa. Lo ashkach, the fire didn't move. Do for your own honor. Istalik. So here, the way the ArtScroll translates it is that it seems like he was asking Rabbi Alexandri himself. That is as if Rabbi Alexandri was the source of the fire. Let it be for the kavod of yourself, so you could be buried. And so then the fire went away. But it could be that he was davening and he said so. But again, if he's talking to Hashem, the kavod avicha doesn't make sense. That there's no way to explain that if he was referring himself to Hashem. So that would be a reason why he had to be addressing himself to Rabbi Alexandria, as strange as it is. But we saw in last week's parsha that uvosid bakun. We have to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Gemara and Rashi says, how do you cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He's like a fiery, consuming fire. So the Chazal say, Hilidabik be'tamid chachamim. You have to be close with tamid chachamim. So it could be that if they weren't able to bury a great sage properly, there's a lack of kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if this fire is so meaning the mitzvah of uvosid bakun, just like you cling to Hashem, you have to cling to the Talmid Chachamim. If you can't bury the Talmid Chacham, that's the last time you can do anything for him. Burying him, accompanying him. So that would be a lack of uvosid bakun to cling to Hashem. So we're saying we can't fulfill the mitzvah of losid bakun for Hashem if we're not able to bury you. So never. Obviously, this Gemara is difficult to understand. I'm trying to explain it the best I could based on what we're capable of understanding. So then he started like the fire went away. Rabbi the Abai says this fire is going to separate people who were not able to fulfill all the Torah the way that he did. So it's just to say that he fulfilled the Torah every minutia, every detail, and no one else fulfilled the Torah like him. That's what Abai was saying. Amarle Ravada Bar Masna said Lafukim Imar. It excludes you, the lo isle makele igre, that you don't have a fence for on your flat roof that needs a fence. So why was Ravada Bar Masna so chutzpahdik? I don't know. Or he was trying to give musar because there's a halacha that if you see someone not doing the right thing, you have to give a tochacha. Maybe he felt that there was he wasn't able to give a hochacha to Abaye, but this gave him an opening to gently rebuke Abaye that I noticed that your house doesn't have a makkah. Again, it's pretty chutzpahdik to say this to Abaye, but the Gemara says Velohi, it wasn't true about that Abaye didn't have a fence around his roof. Mihava, there was Vahishaitahu Dishad Yazika. But at that particular time, when Ravada Bar Masna looked at Abaye's roof, there was a big storm. Like last night, lots of stuff got blown down. And in front of my house, it looks like I think it was not in use, but it looks like a nest, a bird's nest came down. And obviously a lot of things were blown over and stuff. So a wind blew it over. So Abaye wasn't negligent. If a strong wind, an unusually strong wind, you don't have to build it strong enough. You need to, it's like a sukkah. You have to make it strong enough that a common wind, it won't get knocked down. It will still be surrounded. But it was an unusually strong storm, and that's what knocked over Abaye's makkah around his roof. Rab Chanina says, why don't people in Babel suffer from this disease, Rasan, that we were just talking about? Well, because they eat beets and they drink beer of hismi that grow on prickly shrubs. Rabbi Yochanan said, why don't people in Babel have tzaras? So obviously this is the natural tzaras, not the special tzaras for averos. Because they eat the beets and they drink beer. It doesn't prickly bush beer, just regular beer. And they wash in the Euphrates River. We will return to you the chapter if someone had a vow on his wife, or he made a vow for his wife. So we finished the perek here. Oh, so one more thing about the fire. I had this book here to remind me. Rav Aaron mentions that he talks about Jewish education, the fire of Sinai. That obviously the words of Sinai is the Torah, the words of Torah, the laws of Torah, but the fire of Sinai is the Sinai experience and the enthusiasm and feelings that you can't necessarily get from reading a book. And that teachers, when they teach, especially he was talking about teaching children, the way that you need to excite them. So he mentioned from the Rabbeinu Bechaye in Parshas Veschanan, I think it was, that we read a couple weeks ago, that he explicitly says the fire of Har Sinai was that fire has three characteristics. It provides warmth, it lights, it provides illumination, and it consumes. But the Rabbeinu Bechaye points out the fire of Har Sinai was a constructive fire. It did not consume. It only had the positive aspects of fire with none of the negative aspects of fire. So It could be that the fire, that this special fire for the most outstanding person generation who fulfilled every letter might have something to do with the fire of Har Sinai. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, so let's start the next perek. You were 2 smalls and 1 big, I think. Was the orders. Say the prices after. Oh. No, these Gemaras, Agaritas, but there are so many lessons to learn from this one Amma. It took us a long time. What? For the whole Kesuvos, because he was learning it during the year. Wonderful. Where's this? Where's it gonna be? Okay, he's making. Okay, wonderful. Mazel tov. So give him a faher. You'll test him on it, at least on the first 2/3 of it. I told you at the beginning of the year when he was learning, I said you could have a phone chavrus with him. Ask him about Rasan. And when he says Chanina Bar Papa, say, where in the Gemara Kesuvos did you say Chanina Bar Papa? Unfortunately, he's probably not going to know the answer. So just privately ask him. Don't ask him publicly. I wouldn't know the answer, Stam, usually either. So the one piece of information we have to know right here is that there's 2 types of properties that the wife could bring into the marriage. One is called Nichsei Malug. So Nichsei Malug is property that she owns, but the husband can benefit from, like the fields belong to her, but it's an orchard and it produces fruit every year. The husband's able to sell the fruit and use the fruit, but he can't touch the field. We mentioned a few months ago when we were talking about this. He can't touch the principal, but he could touch the gains. So that's called Nechsei Malug, property of Malug. So Malug either means usufruct, which is, I guess, we mentioned that word down, that you could use the interest but not or the gains but not the price, or it means plucking. You pluck a chicken and it doesn't have the feathers anymore, but the chicken is still there. And then there's another thing called Nechsei Tzon Barzal, iron sheep property. And iron sheep property, the husband isn't allowed to touch at all. So it's called iron sheep. So if a woman inherited property or somehow owned property that it wasn't from her father, it was owned by her before she ever got engaged or anything, or kedusha. Modem Beisham Beisol Shemacharis, no sense V'Kayam Beisham and Beisol agree that she can sell them, she can give them as a gift, and whatever happened, has full effect of the law. But what happened if she had Erison? Her husband gave her a ring, but they didn't have chuppah yet, and then maybe her mother died or something, and she inherited a field. So what's halacha? Beishamai Omrim Timkor. Beishamai says she has the legal right to sell the field. Beis Hillel Omrim Lo Timkor, and Beis Hillel says he's not allowed to. But Eiluvei Shimachra Benasna Kayim. But they both agree, which is really Beis Hillel agrees to Beishamai, that if she did sell it, the sale takes effect because. And whatever the Gemara is going to talk about, it's not whatever. The Gemara talks about it that because the husband, anything that's owned by the woman is owned by her husband, if she got a property, she should. So to some extent, it's the husband's. So we're going to talk about. So that's the issue we're going to be talking about in the Gemara. Shemach v'nasa kaim. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda asked, the Chachamim said in front of Rabbi Gamliel, since the husband has acquired his wife, and we know that things that the wife, let's say, for example, if she works, we know that he gets, unless they made a stipulation, he's able to keep what she earns in exchange for him giving her things. But since he had her, lo yitzke ben chasim, didn't he merit to obtain the property that she obtained? So Amar Lahem al Chadash Monaboshim al Shatem Agaglin Shanim. So they said. So Rabbi Gamliel said to Rabbi to the Chachamim, and this is how Rabbi Yehuda said over, on the new fields that came to us now, to the woman at this point, we're boshim. We're a little bit embarrassed, but that's the halacha. Even though she had nesuin for this man, she's able to sell the property. But Ella Shatem Agaglin Shanim, you're going to roll over the old stuff also. If it was owned by her before she was engaged, and she sold before she was engaged, what's the problem with that? Nafla Mishanise, so now third case. If she inherited this property after the chuppah, Beis Shammai agrees to Beis Hillel that if she gave it away or she sold it, the husband is allowed to take it, and not just if it was sold to Shmerel, he doesn't just Shmerel doesn't just have to give him doesn't just have to pay him the money. He's able to actually seize the field back, because it's considered the husband's field to a certain extent, whether it's only for the fruit that it provides. But it's the husband's field, and if she sold it, her act of sale or her act of giving has no halachic significance, and her husband can seize it back from the people that have bought it from her. What if she received the field before the chuppah and now she had chuppah? Does she have a right to sell it? We learned that if she would have sold it before she got married, Beis Shammai says she's allowed to. Beis Hillel says you're not allowed to, but if she did, the sale takes effect. So what if? Yeah, you love the Torah. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. So what if she acquired it at a time where she was able to sell it or give it away, but it wasn't until after the chuppah, when she probably doesn't have rights, but that's what the question is, did her sale take effect or not? Rabbi Gamliel says if she sold it or gave it away, halachically her sale or her gift takes effect. Rab Chanina ben Akavya. Rab Chanina ben Akavya says, Amru lifnei Rabbi Gamliel. They said, the Chachamim said to Rabbi Gamliel, since he merited it, he acquired his wife, and now everything that she owns is his. Doesn't he own his property also? Amr Lahem. So Rabbi Gamliel said, Al Chadash Manaboshim. For the new stuff, we're embarrassed, but that's the halacha, even though it doesn't make so much sense. But you're going to roll the older stuff on us also. So the Gemara is going to explain what exactly point they're arguing about. Rabbi Shimon Cholek ben Nechasim leNechasim. Rabbi Shimon says that he distinguishes between two different types of property. Nechasim are doing laba lo timaker, ve'im mach rabanasna batal. So this literally means if it was property that was known to the husband. And so the Gemara is going to explain what exactly that means. We're not going to see it today. So if it was known to the husband or is known as the husband, she's not allowed to. And if it's not known to the husband, she can't. But if she did, the sale takes effect. So Maishna Reisha Gemara Maishna Reisha the pligi Maishna Sefer the pligi. What's the difference between the first case that Beis Shimon and Beis Hillel agree that she's able to give or sell property before she had kedushin, but that after, then the second case of the Mishnah, if she sold it or gave it after she received kedushin but before chuppah, that Beis Hillel says that she's not allowed to sell it, but if she sold it, it does work. It does affect. What's the difference between those two cases? That Beis Hillel says that l'chadchila she's not allowed to sell the property before the chuppah. What's the difference? Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai said Reisha b'schusa naflu, seifa b'schusa naflu. In the first case, she was completely single, so she completely, it was all hers. But in the second case, she already had kedushin. So once she has kedushin, the husband's in the picture, so it already had some control by the husband. So we'll see. It seems some of the Meforshim explained. We mentioned this a few months ago. We were learning that at what stage does she leave the because it's while she has kedushin, if she makes a vow, her father can annul the vow. The husband does not yet have the right to annul the vow. We had a certain case of after a certain amount of time, and she's traveling for the chuppah, but the chuppah didn't take place yet. If her father or her father's people are with her, the father still knows about, because we also learned this in regard to who has to pay for her food. But if the husband's people took her already and they're on the way, then the husband now has to feed her, but so now he has control of her vows also. So there's not full control before chuppah anyway. But it seems that for whatever reason, there's enough control that the husband has before chuppah, according to Beis Hillel, which obviously we pass like Beis Hillel, for Beis Hillel, for that he has control of the field and she can't sell the field. So then the Gemara says, if they fell and he merited, if they fell into her possession, doesn't really mean fell. They came into her possession. Hello? Okay, I'll come home in 2 minutes. Okay. I'll be home in 2 minutes. If it's the husband's, how come Beis Hillel says that b'di'evet, if she sold it, it goes through? If it's a husband, it shouldn't go through. So el reisha vada b'schus naflu. The first case, it was before they had kedushin. It's certainly hers. Seifa amor b'schuse amor b'schuso. We're not sure if it's his or hers yet, because not literally, but because they didn't have chuppah yet, it's not for sure his yet. He might have certain degree of control, but he certainly doesn't have full control yet. So therefore, simkor. So therefore, lechatchila, she's not allowed to sell it. But if she did, it works because we know it certainly wasn't. He didn't have full. They weren't fully married yet because they didn't have the chuppah. So so if she sold it, the sale does go through. So we'll leave it here at the last line of Ayin Chesed Amud Aleph.